Text this morning is Matthew 7, verses 7 through 12. These are the words of Jesus when he says, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be open. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will he give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets." God always adds his blessings to the reading and the hearing of his word. This passage this morning is actually a part of the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave, which of course was one of the highest, most ethical teachings that Jesus gave in his earthly ministry. And in this Sermon on the Mount and in our passage here this morning, Jesus shows us the very heart of God himself. That if we had nothing but this little passage here for us to know God, that would be enough for us to know who God was, what God's nature was, what we could depend on him for, what he was willing to do for us. And so Jesus, in a very magnificently simple and yet an awesomely wonderful way, summarizes the heart of God with three action words: ask, seek, and knock. Ask, seek, and knock. And he's telling us this in such a way, and that's what it's all about back down here down in the bottom of the passage, where if you being evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more your heavenly Father. And he's not saying that all of us are evil people, but he is saying all of us are sinful people. All of us have been tainted by sin in our life. All of us are not perfect as our God is perfect, because we are sinners by nature. And so if we as sinners know how to give good gifts to our children, what he's saying here is how much more will our perfect Father, our righteous Father, our sinless Father, give good gifts to we who are his children. And certainly if evil people, sinful people know how to do good, how much more does a good God, a perfect God, know how to give good gifts to his children? And so he says, if we ask, we seek, and we knock, there will be wonderful things that happen in our life. So I want to look at each of those action words: ask, seek, and knock. And when we look at the word ask, what the word ask really suggests is a dependence upon God. You know, real faith is marked by depending on God. A person of real faith understands that they can do nothing in this life without the help of God. I love that old gospel song, and where in it, I don't remember what the name of the song itself is, but there's this line in this old gospel song that says, "I can't even walk without him holding my hand." And that's what real faith is about. Understanding that God's power and his presence is needed in our life every day. Not just in the bad days, and not just when everything's going wrong, and not just when things are seemingly falling apart. But when we wake up in the morning till we go to bed at night, and from the time we go to bed at night till we wake up in the morning, we need God's help. If we can wake up in the morning and we can get out of bed and we can walk and we can eat breakfast and we can get ready for whatever the day's activity is, God has helped us to do that. That is God's prevenient grace working in our life to enable us to do that. And so to ask God means that we're showing a dependence on God for whatever it is that we need in our life. Genuine faith recognizes that if it weren't for God, that we could not even do what we do on a daily basis. If it wasn't for his help, if it wasn't for his presence, if it wasn't for his power. We couldn't make it through the day without God's help, without God's presence. We couldn't be the spouse or the parent or the child that we need to be if it were not for God's help. There is a complete awareness in this asking that God is going to have to take care of me. And to emphasize this, I want you to think about how little children are. A few days ago, I was standing in front of Kroger's waiting. It was yesterday, standing in front of Kroger's waiting for Becky. She was going through to get some things, and this couple walked in, a man and a woman, and they had 2 children, both of them at least under the age of 6, a boy and a girl. And man, they had no sooner walked in the door than those 2 children started. Oh, can we get apples? Can we have some bananas? Oh, can we get some of that Coca-Cola that's right there on the stage? You know, and immediately they started asking for things. Did that mom and dad get mad? No. Because that's the nature of little children. They ask. Mama, can I have a glass of water? No, I'll give you a cup of bleach. I'll give you to drink though. That's what he's talking about here. You know, no child asks for something that they need, and you do give them something that will harm them. Don't ask for an egg and get a scorpion. Because that's not the way we treat little children. If they ask for it, we say yes or we say no. Can I have a cookie? It's 15 minutes before supper. Can I have a cookie? Well, no, because we're going to eat in just a few minutes. Can I have a glass of water? Yes, you can have a glass of water. Can I have a banana? Well, yes, maybe, depending. We don't get perturbed at children for asking for things that they need. Why? Because we understand that little children are totally dependent upon us. They can't do anything for themselves. And so they have to have help. And that's what God is telling us here. We don't give bad things to our children. We give them according to what the need and what the situation demands. And we don't feel bad about it. We don't get perturbed at it. It doesn't make us mad. And he's saying here, just ask the Father, and he's not going to get mad at you for asking. He's not going to get bent out of shape for you asking for something. You may or may not get it. Just like if a child asks for a cookie 15 minutes before dinner time, they're not going to get it. But it's not because you don't like them or not because you don't want them to have it. It's simply because the situation does not make that a viable option at that particular moment in time. And God sometimes does say no when we ask him. God sometimes doesn't give us what we want, doesn't move the way we want him to move. But it's not because he's mad at us or he doesn't like us. It's because he understands the situation as a perfect God, knowing that if I give you this at this time, it's going to do this over here that's going to be detrimental to you in some kind of way later on down the road. Just like we don't give a child a cookie 15 minutes before dinner, because we know if we give that child a cookie, she's not going to eat his dinner. Or he's not going to eat all of his dinner. And that's why God tells us no. It's not that he's mad or put out that we ask him and that he doesn't care about us. It's that the situation doesn't demand a yes or doesn't lend itself to a yes at that particular time in our life. And I really like when we look at this in the Greek, the English doesn't really pick up on it very much, or really at all. These 3 words, ask, seek, and knock, in the Greek is in the present indicative tense. That means nothing to y'all, I understand that. That's why I'm going to explain it. In the Greek, the present indicative tense talks about an action that starts in the present but continues on into the future. And so a better interpretation of these 3 words is keep on asking, keep on seeking, and keep on knocking. So it's not that we just ask once and expect God to say. He said, no, keep on asking. Keep on asking until you know I've given you an answer. That's what God's saying here. I will let you know when your answer is here, because you will either get what you're asking for or you won't get what you're asking for. But until I answer your question, don't stop asking. Perseverance is implied in this passage. Keep on doing what you're doing in terms of trying to live by faith in me. Keep on asking if you need to ask for something. Keep on seeking me when you're needing something. And so when we look at this ask, we have to understand we need to look at this from the perspective of a small child. Just as we don't get mad at children for asking, neither does God get mad at us for asking. If the child comes back, now maybe this might be the case. 15 minutes before dinner, he asks for a cookie. You say no. 5 minutes pass, he goes, can I have a cookie? No. 5 minutes later, yeah, you might get a little perturbed by that. But remember what God is saying. We are evil. We don't have the patience that God has. God is a long-suffering God. And we can it is more likely that we would get perturbed at our children than God would get perturbed at us, because we're sinners by nature. We don't, peace and patience and all those kinds of things are in short supply in an imperfect person. But God is perfect. He is patient and long-suffering. You know what long-suffering means? To suffer long. Let me tell you, when I look at my life, God has suffered long with Roger Reed. And I bet he suffered long with some of y'all as well. But he doesn't get mad. In fact, we're commanded here to keep asking. Just to keep asking until you know you've gotten your answer. And that implies a desire. An understanding that everything I have to do, God has to help me do it if it's going to be done right. If it's going to be done well, God has to help me do it. And then he says, seek. This suggests yearning. A yearning for God. See, each of these things intensifies our dependence upon God just a little bit more. Asking for God requires a dependence. Seeking God implies or suggests a yearning for God. A closer walk with God. Real faith yearns for the presence of God. It desires the presence of God in their life in a very tangible kind of way. Psalm 42:1 says, as the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. What is the psalmist saying? I am thirsty for God. I'm yearning for the presence of God because he satisfies in a way that nothing else can satisfy. And that's what Jesus is telling us here. When we're seeking God, we're desiring his presence in tangible ways in our life. There is a deeper desire that is exhibited in seeking God than just asking God. There's an intensification of his presence needed in our life when we seek him. True faith yearns, pants, longs for a fuller and deeper relationship with the God of this universe. True faith hungers for greater intimacy with God. If there is one thing markedly absent from so many in churches today, it's this deep desire for God's presence, a deep hungering or thirsting for God in our lives. How many people have walked into church today with a stopwatch or an egg timer and say, okay, you got this long to make me, to mold me, to shape me, to revive me, to renew me, to teach me, and then I'm done, God. You've got this long. And we try to put God in a box. We try to make him fit into our schedule. But when there's this deeper hunger for something more in life, there's a yearning there. There's a understanding that something is missing in my life. Something is missing in my relationship with God. And there's this thing within us that thinks, man, there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be more to it than this. And when we're at that place, then we're seeking God. We're hungering for God. We're thirsting for God. And that's what he's talking about here, to keep on seeking. You know, we live in an instantaneous society where we can pop a meal in the microwave and in 10 minutes' time we can be eaten. In 20 minutes' time we can eat most things off the stovetop. If we can't, then we got hamburger helper that we can throw in there and we can have a real meal in just a very short while. But God's not that way. God is an eternal God. Therefore, he knows no time. Time doesn't exist in God or for God because he sees the beginning from the end and the end from the beginning. There is no time in God for God. But there's time for you and I. And in our society, we have been conditioned by society itself to expect quick results. 4 years we can have an education. A few more, year or two after that, we can have a master's. A few years after that, we can have a doctorate. It doesn't take a lifetime. We have an automobile. We can be in Columbia in 20 minutes. We can be in Franklin in 45 minutes if the nuts get out of our way on the highway. Everything is quick, fast, almost instantaneous. Takes no time at all to achieve what we want to achieve, to get done what needs to be done. But when it comes to God, you got to understand, time stops. God probably isn't going to answer your question in 10 minutes' time. And he's certainly not going to satisfy that yearning in you in a week's time. That's why he says, keep on doing these things. Keep on seeking. Because God's letting you know, I don't do things quickly. I'm not an American. I don't live in the United States. I live in my own kingdom where time doesn't exist, and so it's going to seem like a long time to you, but it's not going to be long for me, is what God is saying. A day unto the Lord is 1,000 years to men. The Bible tells us that. And so if we're yearning for God, we've got to get prepared to keep on seeking. And sometimes that means keep on doing the Bible study and the prayer time and all those kinds of things that we do when we're seeking God. And sometimes it may mean shifting gears a little bit and doing something a little bit differently. But the solution here God is telling us, you just got to keep on keeping on. Just keep on seeking me and you'll find me. Better yet, keep on seeking me and I'll find you. That's the more way it really works. If we're yearning for God and we're seeking God, he's going to find us. But you see what God rewards faith, and he is long-suffering. Things take a long time sometimes when we're dealing with God. A lot longer than we like them as citizens of the United States. But if we're really yearning for God, he says, keep on seeking me. And I promise you, you'll find me. You will get there. That thirst will be quenched. That hunger will be sated. That desire will be fulfilled if you just keep on seeking me. Jesus is saying when one genuinely seeks me with all their heart, all their soul, and all their mind, they will find me. Once found, you will have that satisfaction in God that your soul is longing for. The one who keeps seeking finds. There's a promise there. If you're seeking God, hold on to that promise. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't get discouraged because it's taken 1, 2, 3, 4 months. Keep on seeking. God says you will get me. It may take longer than you want, but the results, he's saying, will be worth it. You will accomplish what you're seeking to accomplish because he will satisfy those yearnings in your heart. And then third, knock. What does this suggest? Asking it suggests dependence. Seeking suggests yearning. Knocking. See, just my knuckles are already hurting from knocking. If you have to knock a long time, it hurts, doesn't it? Unless you start like this, doing it with your fist. But why do you keep on knocking? Because it does require a little bit of pain if it takes too long for somebody to answer the door. You knock because you want a personal encounter with whoever's behind that door. You want a personal encounter with whoever is behind that door. And really today we don't know much about personal encounters. We're kind of bad in that area anymore today with cell phones. We men, we like to pick up the phone and we'll call. You ladies, you like to text. And so we have our encounters through voice or through texting. But very few times do we knock on a door seeking a face-to-face encounter, a personal encounter with someone. And when we're at the point of knocking, in context of what Jesus said here, we're wanting a personal encounter with God. We're wanting to get beyond the asking. We want to get beyond just the yearning, getting whatever we're desiring taken care of. We're wanting a personal encounter with a living God, which is the deepest response that we could ever have from God. A personal encounter where we know, as that song In the Garden says, He walks with us and He talks with us and He calls us on. That's a personal encounter. That's beyond just having our desires met. That's enjoying God for who God is. Not just for satisfying our desires, not just because He gives us what we ask for, but we just want a personal relationship with the living God of this universe for no other reason than we enjoy His presence. See how each level intensifies a yearning, a desire, personal encounter. Each level brings us into a closer relationship with the living God of this universe. You know, this is the closest that we can desire from God. Just to be with God because we enjoy God. Just to spend time with God because it's just a great thing to do. Not because we want anything, not because we desire anything, but hey, God's the best friend I've got in this world. And I don't want to go a day without spending some time with God. Real faith is a faith that's characterized by enjoying God for who God is. And if He does nothing that day, He doesn't meet one desire, He doesn't answer one question that we have, so be it. I've got to spend time with the King of the world, King of the universe. And I'm just going to keep on knocking, even though it may cost my flesh something. It may hurt my flesh in some kind of way to just get to that point where I enjoy God because God is God. The flesh is going to have to hurt. The knuckles are going to have to get sore. Something in us is going to have to die if we're going to get to that place where we enjoy God for just because He's God. But the promise is still there. Keep on knocking and the door will be open. This is going to be, He's letting us know here, this is going to be a painful thing. It's going to cost you something. It's not going to be an easy road to hold on to keep knocking when those knuckles are sore and bleeding and racked with pain. It's not going to be easy. It's going to physically hurt. If you just keep on knocking, He'll open the door. You'll get to that place where you enjoy God just because He's God. And if He never gives you anything or He never answers your questions, so be it. I got to spend time with the King of the universe today. Wow, what a wonderful thing that is. Wow. That the God of this universe that speaks things into creation would dare enter into a relationship with Roger Reed or with who, put your own name in that place, enter into a relationship where we just spend time together. We just enjoy each other's company. I can't believe God would enjoy my company. But He says He does. What a wonderful place. What a wonderful stage of faith it is when we get beyond just asking. And we get beyond seeking Him because we have these yearnings and desires. But we just get to that place where, God, I just want to be with you today. I just want to spend some time with you. I want to spend some time in your peace, in your glory, in your presence, in your power, in your love, in your grace, in your mercy. Wow. There's no better way to spend an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or a day than in the presence of God. What a wonderful place to have that desire for personal encounter with the living God. So many people never get there. Especially, I think, in the United States of America, where everything comes easy and everything comes freely, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of effort, maybe some, but not an enormous amount of effort. And so we get into this habit of, oh God, I need you to do this for me. And God, I want this yearning in my heart to be quenched. How many of us can ever say we've ever got to that place where we just enjoy being with God? That's what Jesus is saying to me. This is the deepest level of faith. This is where Jesus was in his relationship with God. He just enjoyed the Father. He'd spent all of eternity with the Father, and those 30-something years he was here, he would have to make an effort to go out and just be with the Father. And so he'd get up before dawn, before the sun ever rose, and he'd go out to a lonely place, and he would just be with the Father. They would talk and converse and probably laugh and whatever that they had done throughout eternity. And that fulfilled him. It renewed him. It ministered to him. And he was already perfect. What would spending time with God do for we evil people, to use this word he uses here in our passage? What would it do for us? If sometimes we just turn the television off, or put the magazine down, turn the radio off, and just be quiet there in the presence of God. What would it do for us? What would it do for you? How much less worry and anxiety and turmoil would there be in your life? If you could just understand this, knock, keep knocking, and the door will be opened. And we did that. I'm convinced that so many times when it comes to God, because we're used to the quick, easy life, the fast return on our investment, whatever the case may be, I'm convinced there are times we throw the towel in too soon. We're asking. Well, it's been 3 weeks and God hasn't answered me, so I just might as well quit asking from that. And if we'd ask one more day, just one more day, God might have answered it. We've been seeking God for 3 or 4 months, and I still got this desire. He's not meeting this desire. This yearning is still there. This thirst is still there. And so, well, I've been doing this for 4 months and nothing's happened. So we throw in the towel. If we'd just gone another month, we'd have had what we were looking for, yearning for. Or we're wanting just to spend time with God for just because he's God, and we go 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, and the door's still closed. I'm not having this close encounter with God. If we'd just gone 2 more months, we'd have had what we wanted. We are impatient people as citizens of the United States. And we cut ourselves off from God far too quickly many times. Because God is not about time. Not at all. Doesn't affect him in the least. And he's trying to build in us a patience and a persistence. Remember the parable that Jesus told about the unrighteous judge? And every morning this woman would come to the unrighteous judge's house, And she would knock on the door, and he would answer the door, and she would always ask him to do this particular thing, and he would never do it. And so every day she came back, she kept knocking, she kept asking, she kept desiring the judge to meet his need. And the parable ends like this. The judge says, I'm going to give this woman what she wants because she's pestering me to death. And that's a paraphrase. That's not really in the Bible, but that's basically what the judge says. How much more your Heavenly Father is willing to give us what we ask if we persevere, if we keep asking, if we keep seeking, if we keep knocking. Don't cut yourself short. Don't throw in the towel until God tells you to throw in the towel. Because the blessings come through perseverance. Continue doing the things God's instructed us to do. We keep asking, we're going to receive it. We keep seeking, we're going to find it. We keep knocking, the door's going to be open. That's a promise that God has made us here. That's a promise Jesus has made us here. And he puts no time frame on it. So it means we may have to do it in a short while. We may have to do it a long time. But we'll get it if we keep doing it. That's the promise he makes. Would you pray with me?